pulp to pig rectum, do you know what you are actually eating? Here are 10 examples of foods that are not what they might seem. Number 10. Prime meat. The prime cut meats that smaller restaurants and corporations sell are one of the biggest complaints that high-end chefs and physicians make. That's because prime cut suggests that it is a single cut of the best meat from the animal. But this isn't the case in many restaurants. Actually, what if I told you they chop up all the leftover meat and glue it back together? Does the word transglutaminase ring a bell? This is the name for the meat glue they use to glue the low-quality meat back together to make you think that you're getting a full piece. This is more than a lie. This is just disgusting. Besides the fact that it is using the worst tiny cuts of meat, it's made from ammonia, the stuff used in fertilizers and oven cleaners. They try to fight back by claiming it kills E. coli, which should not be something we should be worried about being on meat anyway. Justifying making people unknowingly eat ammonia just so they can pass off scrap meat does not seem ethical in the least. Be very careful where you eat your steak. See, this is why being a vegetarian seems like a safer option. Or maybe seafood. Number 9. Imitation crab. Or maybe not seafood. For one, crustaceans feed off the worst possible debris on the bottom of the ocean. The only nastier creature is shrimp. This stuff they eat doesn't magically disappear when they are caught and cooked either. There's still stuff in it that we eat secondhand. Nevertheless, it's expensive to buy fresh crab and shrimp, but you can get crab cakes and other delicacies at the grocery store for a pretty good price. Why? It's usually because it's fake, under the guise of imitation crab meat. Imitation crab meat is made from the remains of other fish that are mushed together and injected into a mold. They mince and mince random fish, whatever they can get their hands on, until it turns into the same texture as crab. It is then created into a paste that is frozen and then shaved into crab-like flakes. To make it taste like crab, they just add flavor and paint it to look like crab. So, next time you go for some cheap crab, remember that it's probably beaten, frozen, shaved, and painted fish remains. I kind of like imitation crab, but I'm not really a fan of this process. But it still tastes good, so if you're okay with this, then go right ahead. Number 8. Parmesan cheese. Parmesan cheese is delicious, especially real, authentic Parmesan cheese. But did you know that companies will usually lie about what's in Parmesan? The FDA regulations make it legal to sell fake Parmesan cheese. This is some scary stuff. There are 2 huge deal breakers with Parmesan. One is grated Parmesan in the shaker. Most of the time, cellulose and mold inhibitor chemicals are added so it won't clump. Cellulose, not cellulite, that's just an after effect. Cellulose comes from ground-up wood pulp and is considered harmless and organic matter. They usually add 2 to 4% cellulose, but the FDA doesn't restrict it. In fact, some has been proven to carry 20% cellulose. That's a lot of cellulose on your pasta. The saddest part is this is just allowed in the United States. Parmesan cheese legally means the kind of cheese that comes from Parma, Italy. But in the US, you can call it Parmesan when it's just dehydrated, grated mozzarella. This is like the Kobe beef of cheeses. Most of the time when you get Parmesan, it's not Parmesan. It's cellulose and a mixture of cheap cheeses. Darn it! Number 7. Egg substitute. This one is a little different. No one knows what it is, but many believe that it's a great substitute for people with egg allergies. But really, it's still just eggs. They take mostly egg whites, fresh, frozen, or powdered, and add other ingredients. But not much. They actually just contain 99% egg whites. There's not actually much substituting going on. It might be easier for people who don't want to go to the trouble dealing with eggshells and yolks slipping everywhere, etc. In reality, it is called egg substitute because of that 1% that's just artificial coloring, salt, onion powder, and who knows what else. Why? Why would they just flavor egg whites? Egg substitute is kind of misleading and should be for people with egg allergies who need a substitute. It shouldn't be just eggs. Maybe it's substituting something else. Is it the bottle substituting for the shell? Bottom line is, this isn't egg substitute. It's usually just expensive eggs. Number 6. Artificial calamari. This is said to be an urban legend, and all legends stem from some element of truth, no matter how small. This may or may not be true, but it is interesting enough to share. It focuses on imitation calamari. It began when someone saw a box of artificial calamari at a pig farm. When asked what it was, someone said that it was pig bung or pig rectum. If you see a picture of bung, you'll notice that it looks very similar to calamari when fried. It's not that uncommon, and many say it's really tasty. I don't know about you, but if I want calamari, that means I do not want a hog's bung. Word spread like wildfire, and everyone started accusing restaurants of selling bung as calamari. This would be illegal, and since not much was ever officially spoken after that, it wouldn't surprise me if the silence was to avoid trouble. The story is that the reason the man didn't speak up was because his girlfriend didn't want his name being associated with such a subject as a hog's rear end. How embarrassing. But this doesn't really matter since we eat all kinds of pig parts anyway. We really don't care about Bung Man, but what we do care about is the calamari we've been eating and everyone trying to trick us into eating things we didn't ask for. Number 5. Maple syrup. Maple syrup is tasty, and aside from natural sugar, it has little ill effects on our body. However, what if you found out that most maple syrup you buy is not maple syrup at all? Maple syrup is delicious, but what are you actually buying? The main ingredients in maple syrup are water, high fructose corn syrup, caramel coloring, and other chemicals. You're usually not eating fresh Canadian syrup from the tree. Now, it has all kinds of ingredients that are far from natural and blended with all kinds of artificial flavors like butter and bacon. This is a product where you should definitely check the label. They aren't legally allowed to lie there. Actually, they are in some cases, but I think we're clear as far as maple syrup goes. High fructose corn syrup is just awful, and adding chemicals to food is beyond me. But this is our world, people. You have to look hard to find companies who are willing to stick the maple syrup gathering thingy in the trees and wait patiently. They whip up a batch of their own fake syrup, and it's good enough. Number 4. Chocolate candy. One of the worst ones ever. Fake chocolate. This is unconstitutional by every means, but companies are faking us out by giving us cocoa, chocolatey substances, chocolate-flavored candy, and other, even worse, substitutes for chocolate. Now, you may not know the difference between cocoa and chocolate, but the FDA knows the difference. They have 15 different subcategories under cacao products, but they only have 8 different types of chocolate products. So what the heck are they talking about? Cocoa butter is actually a form of chocolate liqueur. It is the fatty part of the cacao bean, and it's also what white chocolate is made out of. But there is no cocoa powder or cocoa solids in it. But to legally qualify as chocolate under the FDA, the product must contain cocoa and cocoa butter. Milk chocolate is a chocolate made with liqueur, dairy, and sugar. If you want to know if something is real chocolate, then it must say chocolate liqueur, cocoa, and cocoa butter. Others will just have vegetable oil and cocoa. Real chocolate uses cocoa butter as its oil, so that's how you know you are eating the real thing. But the real obvious red flag that you are eating something that is trying to be something else is chocolate flavored. Number 3. Olive oil. Olive oil is a lucrative industry, but unfortunately it's full of scam artists. Up to 90% of the olive oils on the market are fake, tampered with, oxidized omega-6 vegetable oils that use sunflower oil or peanut oil. There are even some Italian imports that are fake, which is a shame considering all of the pure olive oil in Italy, which many times actually comes from Spain and then is rebottled as Italian, so you don't even know what you're getting anymore. Olive oil doesn't have a long shelf life, and it's a lot more expensive to make and harvest than peanut oil, so substitutes are often used to save money. This is especially true when imports are shipped, as the boat ride can cut the shelf life in half. An unknown danger from these fake olive oils is allergies. People with sunflower oil or peanut allergies would never think that their olive oil would kill them. These fake olive oils can be found in restaurants and grocery stores labeled olive oil. It's hard to spot the real stuff, but legend says if you get just one taste of the real stuff, you'll never be able to taste another drop of the fake stuff without cringing. This is a product worth splurging on to get the real thing. Number 2. Fish. The most common fraud as far as fish is concerned is the blatant lie that the fish is wild and freshly caught when it was definitely farmed, which is okay if you're supporting sustainability, but another thing is just the lie as to what kind of fish you're being sold. Red snapper is one of the most expensive fish that you can buy. It tastes great and is caught in the wild, but most of the time the red snapper you order isn't red snapper. Most likely it's tilapia imported for a cheap save. Studies show that 9 out of 10 times red snapper sellers are lying. There's only one way to avoid this: buy locally. Now this isn't easy, but it isn't likely that the restaurant has a real red snapper if you can't get it locally anyway. Shrimp has a similar problem. Shrimp are often poorly farmed, cleaned, and just gross most of the time. They are farmed in wastelands full of chemicals and dumps. Shrimp farming is also one of the most common under-the-table slave labor industries around the world. If you want to get delicious fresh shrimp, you have to go to the Golden Isles off the Georgia coast. Just trust me. In 2015, the FDA found illegal antibiotics and elevated levels of toxins in the shrimp we consume. Now, this doesn't mean never eat shrimp again, because I personally love shrimp. Just remember that not all shrimp is clean. Number 1, American cheese. You knew this was coming. Let's focus on American cheese. Why, you ask? Why? Are they trying to kill us slowly? This cheese may harden up quick, but does it ever get moldy? Nope. That's because it isn't cheese. It's known as pasteurized processed cheese, pasteurized processed cheese product, or pasteurized processed cheese food. Regular cheese is created by heating milk, stirring in enzymes and cultures, separating the curds from the whey, and salting and knitting the curds into a block or wheel to age. But American cheese is made by mixing together random leftover cheeses. These are pasteurized and emulsified to make it all smooth and slimy. Also, it isn't naturally a block. It isn't even sliced sometimes. It's molded. Sure, it tastes great on burgers, but the process it goes through is less than appetizing. It isn't even legally cheese. In fact, it has over 20 ingredients which you know can't be good for you. It may be cheaper, but for the most part, it is less satisfying than a sliver of real cheese by a long shot.